He committed suicide at home when suddenly, a courier knocked on the door and delivered a package. Upon opening it, he found a box of cigars, and hidden in a secret compartment underneath was a pistol, so he decided not to go through with suicide instead. He would use this gun to rob someone for money. Little did he know, this mysteriously appearing pistol actually belonged to a police officer. This film could be called the Korean version of Crazy Stone, with its interlocking plot that is both hilarious and logical. The story begins with a police officer who has a gambling habit. On this day, while gambling with a casino owner, he not only lost all the borrowed money but also ended up in debt, forcing him to pawn his service weapon as collateral. But that wasn't the worst of it. His frequent visits to the casino were discovered by a prosecutor, and as soon as he returned to the police station, he was notified of his suspension and required to hand over his service weapon. He rushed to the casino to retrieve his gun, but the owner demanded he pay to redeem it. With no other choice, the officer had to find a way to get the money. Actually, the owner didn't really need the money. What he wanted was the gun to use for a murder. Although his casino was profitable, a certain councilman had him under control, constantly extorting money and growing increasingly demanding, never hesitating to humiliate him whenever dissatisfied. The owner had finally had enough. He decided to take out this corrupt councilman, so he called a former top hitman, explaining he needed someone eliminated and that the gun would be delivered to him. Hearing he could return to the underworld, the hitman immediately stopped what he was doing, returned to his rental room, pulled out his long dormant arsenal, and began intensive training. After all, it had been 20 years since his last kill. His skills were a bit rusty, and accidentally targeting the wrong person was always a possibility. The casino owner placed the gun inside a cigar box and sent one of his men to deliver it to the hitman's home. Curious, the subordinate quietly opened the box and was furious. What was this? He was part of the underworld, yet he was being treated like an errand boy delivering cigarettes. Just then, he spotted a courier and handed the box over for him to deliver. The courier arrived at the hitman's home and knocked, but the hitman happened to be downstairs buying cigarettes. Seeing no one home, the courier went next door, hoping the neighbor could sign for the package. The neighbor, Min Jae, was at home attempting to take his own life with a belt. Just to get rid of the courier, he accepted the package on his neighbor's behalf. He was about to resume what he had planned, but curiosity got the better of him. He opened the package and discovered a pistol hidden in the secret compartment. It looked surprisingly realistic for a toy gun. At that moment, the hitman returned home after buying cigarettes, passing by the courier on the way. Back inside, the hitman turned on the TV to learn how to shoot himself if caught by the police. The gunshot sound from the TV startled the hitman, but it was the neighbor, Min Jae, who was truly shocked. He stared in disbelief at the gun in his hand, realizing it was no toy. After recovering, a sudden idea struck him. If he used this gun to rob someone, maybe he wouldn't have to end his life after all. The reason he had planned to take his own life was that his mother needed money for surgery. Struggling financially, he couldn't afford the high medical fees, so he tried his luck at an arcade. Perhaps out of pity, luck was on his side. He won 5 million won. He excitedly cashed out his winnings, but that's when loan sharks spotted him. Min Jae had taken out a high-interest loan for his mother's treatment and had been unable to repay it. The thugs beat him up and stole the 5 million he had just won. He begged desperately, saying this was his mother's life-saving money, but the thugs only cared about the money and showed no mercy, telling him to repay the remaining loan by the next day, or else there would be consequences. Depressed, Min Jae went to a convenience store, took a bottle of soju, and turned to leave. The store owner said, "You haven't paid for that yet."
돈 없다고!
After drinking the soju at home, he was filled with thoughts of suicide. And now, with a gun in hand, he planned to rob money for his mother's surgery. As soon as Min Jae stepped outside, he ran into the landlady and thought it would be a good chance to practice.
돈 내라 씨.
사람을 이 호러 새끼야! 야! 호러감으로 나한테 협박한다고 내가 그냥 내줄 줄 알고 누운 것 같은데 네가 이런
But his first attempted robbery ended with him fleeing in panic. Meanwhile, in order to get money to redeem his gun, the police officer returned to the police station. He switched a bag of confiscated contraband with flour. Then he went to an underground shop wanting to buy a toy gun. The shopkeeper explained, "This isn't an ordinary toy gun. It's a premium replica. It has gunpowder loaded in the cartridge instead of bullets. It makes a sound when fired, and its weight and dimensions are identical to a real gun."
왜?
근데 처음 보는 손님 같은데 뭐하는 사람? 우리 이거 불법이라 신뢰 없는 사람한테 안 팔아.
됐지.
And so, the police officer obtained a replica gun. Shortly after, Min Jae and the police officer entered the casino one after the other. Min Jae came here to get back the 2.5 million taken by the thugs. The police officer came here to find the thugs and sell the switched goods. Just as Min Jae was about to pull out his gun, a thug suddenly stood up and respectfully called out, "Hello, officer." Hearing there was a police officer, Min Jae, feeling guilty, ran to the bathroom and hid in a stall marked out of order. But soon after, the police officer dragged a rule breaker into the bathroom and gave him a stern warning. Min Jae thought he had been discovered and instinctively pulled out his gun. The police officer outside also drew his replica gun, threatening the other to contact his superior for a deal. At that moment, the bathroom door, damaged from the earlier struggle, automatically swung open. Both sides immediately aimed at each other, but Min Jae quickly raised his hands out of instinct. The police officer thought Min Jae was also holding a toy gun and had no time to deal with him now, as the deal was more important. After the police officer left, Min Jae breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he flushed the toilet, he unexpectedly opened a hidden door. Walking in, he discovered it was the casino owner's secret room. Seeing the owner with a bag full of money, he thought it was a good opportunity, covered his face with a scarf, and rushed in to rob the money. Seeing someone with a gun, the owner had no choice but to hand over the money. Min Jae happily walked away carrying the bag of money. The owner immediately found his underling and told him to get the money back. This bag of money was the reserve fund he had prepared for the councilman, in case the assassin's mission failed. Just then, the assassin called asking why the gun hadn't been delivered yet. As he couldn't wait any longer to act, the owner sensed something was wrong and urgently asked his underling, "You didn't deliver the item?" "I don't know. I sent it by courier, and I even paid for express delivery." "You entrusted something this important to a courier?" "Important? Wasn't it just delivering cigarettes?" Furious, the owner immediately wanted to punish him. The underling begged for mercy, saying he would go find the courier to get the gun back and redeem himself. As a former top-tier hitman, he believed it didn't matter whether he used a gun or not. A knife would work just as well. Before setting out, he carved the target's name onto his arm, a habit he had developed since first entering the profession.
Goodbye, Moon.
It was full of ritual, and looked thoroughly professional, but just as he stepped out the door, he suddenly remembered that on his way back earlier, he had run into a courier. Putting that together with the unexplained gunshot he had heard, it suddenly dawned on him. The handgun had most likely ended up in his neighbor's hands. He prepared to take out his dagger and go check on his neighbor's place.
박씨, 남의 집에서 뭐 하는 거야? 박씨 괜찮아?
팔이 저려서 그래요.
오지게 복도 없지. 어째 정신 나간 놈들만 들어와서 하노.
Meanwhile, Min Jae had just returned home not long before. He placed the handgun back into the cigar box and took out his mother's hospital bill, preparing to go pay the surgery fee. But just as he was about to leave, he heard a noise outside the door. peering through the peephole, he saw a man with a dagger in his mouth picking the lock. Min Jae, thinking it was an assassin sent by the casino boss to silence him, quickly climbed out the window to hide. The hitman was indeed professional, swiftly picking the lock open. Finding a banknote on the floor and seeing no one around, he quietly picked it up and pocketed it. Can't help it had been years since he was a hitman, and old frugal habits die hard. This little distraction made him forget what he came in for. After thinking for a long while, he finally remembered he was here to find the gun. He found the gun in the cigar box and left. Seeing the hitman leave, Min Jae, who could barely hold on any longer, finally climbed back inside. But before he could catch his breath, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was his underling who had brought the courier to his door. Min Jae had no choice but to climb out the window again. The underling noticed the lock was broken, entered the room, and found the cigar box. But the gun was gone. Furious, he beat up the courier, even using a tool to inflict serious blows until the courier was knocked unconscious. Then, he spotted the bag of money on the bed and was amazed. How did the money end up here? While he was delightedly surprised, the courier regained consciousness, fought back, and knocked out the underling. So, when pushed to the brink, people can act out of desperation. Afterwards, the courier took that bag of money and left. Min Jae hurriedly climbed back inside, rushed downstairs, and took a taxi to chase after him. Catching up on a bridge, the courier, terrified because he had hurt someone, was preparing to end his own life. Min Jae lied to him, saying the man wasn't in life-threatening danger. Just as the courier was about to climb down, a truck passed by, its gust of wind knocking him off the bridge. And right under the bridge, the police were in the middle of a deal with the other party. The other party suddenly noticed the gun at the police officer's waist and thought he had ulterior motives. To show good faith, the police officer put down the replica gun, but the other party wasn't willing to take the risk and called off the deal. Leaving, the police officer spotted the courier who had fallen into the water, rescued him, and also discovered that bag of money. Min Jae, driving the courier's vehicle, arrived under the bridge to search and just saw the police taking the money away. He turned around to chase after them. The police officer went to the casino and gave the money to the boss to redeem the gun. The boss said the gun was lost. Enraged, the police officer pulled out the replica gun and threatened the boss to hand over the real gun immediately. But the phone rang, and a colleague discovered the situation at Min Jae's home, telling him to go deal with it. The police rushed over. As soon as he left, Min Jae charged into the casino, frantically searching for the person who took the money bag, only to be knocked out from behind. The boss locked him up. Meanwhile, the hitman was at the counselor's doorstep, preparing to strike, looking at the dagger and gun in his hands. As a former top-notch hitman, he decided to use the dagger for a silent operation. The counselor's dog spotted the hitman and charged at him. Seeing that he was exposed, the hitman could only climb over the wall, but his skills weren't what they used to be. Not only did he fall, but he also got some filthy stuff on himself. He ran back home and found the police surrounding the place, thinking they were there for him, but actually they were at Min Jae's home to handle the earlier incident. The police officer upstairs was worried about the lack of clues when he suddenly noticed the sneaky hitman downstairs. He went down to stop the hitman, who pulled out a gun to threaten him. The officer initially thought it was a fake gun, but upon seeing the marks on it, he recognized it as his own service weapon. This was a real gun. He could only raise his hands. The hitman snatched his fake gun and quickly left the scene. But as a hitman, he never gives up until the job is done, so he decided to act during the counselor's speech the next day. The police officer learned from the boss that the gun might be in the hitman's possession, and he planned to retrieve it tomorrow. Knowing the counselor wasn't dead that night, the boss, at dawn, carried the money to deliver it to the counselor. As soon as he left, Min Jae desperately broke free from the ropes and ran out. He followed the boss to the counselor's speech venue. The scene appeared calm at the moment, but undercurrents were stirring. The counselor was giving a speech, and Min Jae there to grab the money, the boss there to deliver the money, the police officer there to find the gun, and the hitman there to kill all gathered in this place. The hitman seized the opportunity and fired at the counselor. The counselor fell, and the hitman left. But the counselor touched his head. Huh? Nothing happened? He stood up, seeing he hadn't succeeded. The hitman, ever professional, rushed forward and fired several shots, only to realize it was actually a fake gun. He immediately pulled out another gun to shoot, but the police officer rushed over and subdued the hitman. After all the hardship, he finally got his own gun back. Min-jae took advantage of the chaos to take the money bag from the boss's car. This was spotted by the police officer, who drove after him. After a frantic chase, Min-jae's car was intercepted, and he abandoned it to flee. The officer fired a warning shot, and Min-jae decisively jumped off the bridge, only to be rescued by a few passers-by. Everyone was taken to the police station, since a fake gun was used. The investigators didn't classify the hitman's act as an attempted murder, but rather thought it was a prank due to his dissatisfaction with the election. As for the bag of money, the boss didn't dare admit it was meant for bribing the counselor, so he could only say it belonged to Min-jae. The investigator questioned, "Is this money yours?" Min-jae answered, "Yes, it is." The officer said, "You're lying. You can't even pay your rent. So how could you have this much?" Min-jae took out his mother's hospitalization bill and began his explanation.
이게 저희 어머니 수술 동의서거든요. 그러니까 엄마 수술비 때문에 제가 신체 포기각서 쓰고 빌린 돈입니다. 월세방 대출금 보증금도 빼고 1,000만 원 준비했는데 1,000만 원도 사채업자 내 돈 빌린 것 때문에 다 뺏기고, 그래서 어쩔 수 없이 제가 제 몸뚱아리 걸고 빌 돈입니다.
경찰 부른다. 당신들 분명히 얘기했지. 그 내 돈이라고. 뭐 아냐?
네 돈이잖아. 가. 민재야, 너 잘 감시해라.
In the end, Min-jae was able to use the money to pay for his mother's surgery, and he was also hospitalized due to his injuries. Although the officer got his gun back, he was still deep in debt, so he went to the hospital to try to take the money bag, but it felt wrong when he carried it. He opened it to find it full of drink bottles that had been swapped by Min-jae. At that moment, Min-jae was holding the actual money, excitedly running out of the hospital. He was so overjoyed that he didn't watch his step and fell into an under-repair manhole. This is where the movie ends. The film uses parallel storytelling, linking the fates of characters from different social strata: a struggling young man, a police officer, a counselor, through the gun and money, which is quite interesting. The plot lines are complex, full of surprises, tightly interwoven, unexpected yet logical, giving a vibe similar to Crazy Stone. The Uncle Killer has provided all the laughs for the audience. Those who enjoy this genre can check out the original film, as it is quite delightful.
똑같아!